A pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Academy session on the principles of food safety. Before we get started, I just want to quickly touch on attendance going forward. We've noticed that some participants join for a few minutes and then drop off, and we want to make sure that attendance reflects meaningful participation. So starting tonight, we'll be taking attendance only for those who have been present for at least 1 hour of the session. However, please note that we completely understand that sometimes things come up, and we'll take that into account for past sessions because we have had persons who have indicated reasons for such. But moving forward, this will be the standard we'll use for recording attendance. Again, this new rule applies beginning tonight's sessions. So please ensure to be recorded based on what we are looking at for attendance purposes. Please ensure you stay on for at least an hour to have your attendance recorded. Now, turning our topic or our focus on this evening's main agenda, principles of food safety. Now, this is an essential area that affects every stage of the food system, from production to consumption. Understanding these principles helps us to ensure that the food we prepare and share is safe, healthy, and also of the highest quality. So tonight, I am very pleased to have with us Ms. Theodora Morel, who will be leading tonight's session, and she will tell you a little bit more about herself during the start of the session and as she continues through her presentation. Our presenter for tonight brings a wealth of knowledge and hands-on experience in food safety, and she will additionally be sharing insights that are both practical and informative. Ladies, please help me to give a warm welcome to our presenter for this evening as she begins her presentation.
Thank you, Latoya. Can everybody hear me, I hope? Welcome, everyone. I know it is a challenge to make it out here, and I really, really appreciate you because I know you guys had a long day taking care of the kids and coming home, so I don't take it lightly that it's a challenging day, but I'm going to try to make it as exciting as possible and as informative. Let's make sure we remember our brethren in the neighboring island as they are going through the hurricane right now. Unfortunately, a lot of us have experienced that, and that's the dark side of paradise. So let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. A little bit about me. I'm Theodora Morel, but I go by Theo. Unless you're really mad at me, then you call me Theodora. So I'm hoping I don't get a Theodora today. I am currently a retired food safety executive. I've had over 45 years of experience in that field. I retired in 2019 from Kellogg, the cereal company. I was the vice president of global food safety and quality and regulatory, which required me to work globally across the continent. Prior to Kellogg, I worked with Kraft Foods for about 30 years. So I've been around and I'm excited about food safety. One of the things I like about food safety and about Helen's Daughters is I've always wanted to give back to the community. I am originally from St. Lucia. I left St. Lucia when I was 18, but my heart always belongs to the Caribbean, and I've always wanted to give back because in the developed countries, we see a lot of the food safety policies being written, but then we don't have insight into the Caribbean and Africa. But then we are expected to implement it. So I'm excited to give you an awareness, not a training, just an awareness on food safety and how it impacts us. Now, as far as questions, we can take a break. I have plenty of time in there for questions. and we will have a break for question. But if your question is important, use the raise hand features, and Latoya will help me navigate the questions. Any questions before we start? Any requests? Any why am I here? What does food safety have to do with that?
Well, I'm seeing one hand up, Safad. I'm not sure if it's a mistake or not, but Angelina
Angelina?
Augustine, your hand
Angelina,
is
you can
up.
speak
Do you
up.
have a question, comment? You may
I'm
speak.
sorry, that's an error.
Okay,
No question at
Okay,
the
no
moment.
problem.
Yes,
you
sorry.
can just put it down,
Yeah.
Angelina. All right, so without further ado, we'll get started. So, ooh, Latoya, why am I not going? I can't advance it.
It moved. Just say, go ahead again, unless.
Okay, so I got it. All right.
Yeah.
So food safety isn't optional. So Latoya talked a little bit about the importance of food safety. So you guys have been in this academy and you've learned a lot about food and all the different aspects. Now, food safety is so critical, not only for your farm, but for you, for your family. If food is not safe, it's not food. And you will hear that a little bit. So every single person gets impacted by food safety. So it's not an option. When you go out to restaurants, you want to make sure your food is safe. No matter where you eat at home, you want to make sure your family and friends are safe. So food safety is optional. And today we will talk about the principle of food safety. And next, and on Thursday, we'll talk about how you implement it on the farm, or if you are doing agro processing, we'll do a little bit of that. Okay? And why is food safety not optional? We talked a little bit about that. It affects our health, our wealth, reputation of countries and families. So no matter what you do, food safety will be part of that. Now, by a show of hands, or if there's anybody who can either speak up or put it in the chat, what is CAHFSA, CAFSA? Does anybody recognize that acronym? No?
Please feel free to raise your hand if you want to speak, or you're free to type it in the chat.
So I forgot to tell you, I'm trying to make this interactive because I know how hard it is to do it virtual and to sit down there and listen. Anyone?
We have one person in the chat say, okay, we have a hand up.
Okay.
Avril?
Good evening, everyone. It is, if I recall, it was Caribbean Agriculture, Health, something or the other. I'm trying to remember the thing, but
About you got half of it.
Caribbean Agricultural Health and Food Safety.
Agency, yes. Do you
Yeah,
know what they do?
Um, it's a while since I even had much to do with them, I should say, but I think it has to do with handling, monitoring the handling of foods.
Yeah.
Something to do with the application of health and ensuring that what we have in the region is reputable.
Yep. Thank you so much. You are right on track. So it's called Caribbean Agriculture Health and Food Safety Agency. And it's equivalent to the FDA or USDA or the big agencies in Canada or Europe, EFSA. So this is our Caribbean Food Safety Agency, and they are responsible for policy writing, monitoring, and everything that we do for food safety for the Caribbean, for lab testing, animal husbandry. So if you had not heard about them, it would be great for you to go in and look at their website and see the work that they do on there. They are very linked to the WHO, and so you get a lot of information here. Unfortunately, because their resources are limited, the way they monitor food safety incidents is limited. I don't have a good place where I can say, okay, let me see how many food recalls we have for the Caribbean. The numbers are very limited, but they are working on it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So recently, and I was really excited to see that they decided to put the focus on food safety, and they created a subgroup where that group will not only write the policy, but create a bottoms up food safety program to help CAFSA. And so I'll play a little bit about what they did, what that's about for you, so you can be aware of it. Let's hope that works. I hope you guys can hear.
Yes, we are seeing it
The volume
and
is
Can you hear it?
hearing.
The
The
volume
volume
is
is a little
low.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't make it louder, sorry.
Food control agencies are operating in silence, and it is the intention of the task force to bring them together.
Food control is a multidisciplinary area because food safety starts from the farm right up to the fork. And you have different ministries and departments within government, like agriculture, which would have like plant protection, veterinary services, they have some laboratory services, they have the systems of health, which have their department, then you would have public.
Of the faculty, agriculture at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, Professor Mark Woodavera said his faculty will continue to further their research, educate persons, and boost food resilience in the region through capacity building.
With respect to food safety, that is something that we have taken as very important. We have our MSc in agri-food safety and quality assurance. Because we know that it is not safe, it is not food. In fact, if it is not safe, it cannot be nutritious. If it is not safe, it cannot be healthy. So if it is not safe, definitely you can't call it food.
The safety of citizens is the government's #1 priority. This according to Minister of Agriculture, Ravi Rathiram. The minister also welcomed Trinidad and Tobago's hosting of the second in-person meeting of the regional task force, noting the importance of the collective work being done.
And we cannot be having, food being brought in, food being on the table, and you don't know what are the phytosanitary conditions, you don't know what are the different parts of the region that these food bring with it, and the risks associated and involved. At the end of the day, we have a huge responsibility to ensure safety of the consumer.
Minister Rathiram said this project is one that requires all hands on deck by regulators, regional and international trading partners to ensure the safety of consumers by avoiding any negative incidents or impacts. The CTFS is conducting their 2025 annual meeting at the US St. Augustine on June 3rd and 4th. Jason John, TTT News.
Okay, so basically what that was is a task force that was formed by member companies. So there's 2 people from St. Lucia, 2 people from St. Vincent. Each of the member states have 2 people representing them. And their goal is to act as a standing technical advisor support to CAFSA in fulfilling food safety mandates to regional and international trade. The problem with us is every country currently have a different standard, and we're not talking to each other, and we need to talk to each other. We need to share data. It's like in the United States, you have 50 states. All the 50 states feed the information to the FDA or the USDA. And so that's what they are trying to achieve for the US. So keep an eye out for it. Now you will have a little bit more food safety knowledge, so you're going to understand what they're talking about and see how and where it impacts you. Okay? So today we are going to cover the principles of food safety. The key topics we will cover are basic principles of food safety, foodborne illness and microorganisms. We'll touch on kitchen and personal hygiene. Now, we have a homework for farm food safety plan, but we are going to do that after because we did not send out the food safety plan, right, Latoya? I don't think we did. But I will put it back later. And then what I'd like for us to do is have 2 volunteers to summarize 2 or 3 key learnings at the next session. So we can volunteer or you can be voluntold. I find it's easier when you volunteer. So it's just listening and using the notes and just summarize 2 key learnings from the day session. And we'll do that at the next session, at the beginning of the next session. So what are your learning objectives? Understand food safety culture and producing safe food. Understand the key microorganisms and foodborne pathogens and how they impact us. What are the main food safety hazards? The basics of kitchen and personal hygiene, and how is it a precursor to farm food safety? And then how to use the tools in your kitchen to prevent foodborne illness. So I wanted to give you a little bit about food recall and how important food safety is. So in the US, in Europe, in Canada, food recall is always happening. It's high. Now, when I ask, do we have food recalls in the Caribbean? The answer is always no. And it's no, not because we don't have it. So we have foodborne poisoning in the Caribbean, but when we get sick, we don't have a place to go and report it. So we chalk it up to, oh, I had a cold, or I am tired, then we take ginger tea, or we take some bush medicine, and then we get better. The thing about food safety poisoning is that it most of the time is not deadly. It just makes you sick, and after a while you get over it. But it can be deadly. Example in the US, last year we had a number of big recalls, and I talked about it the last session. This year, food recalls in the US is down, according to the federal government. Now, just like the Caribbean, it's not actually down. This is my take on it. I wish it was, but what if you go back and look behind why we are saying it's down? Our current administration has significantly reduced inspection of the factories. So those food safety things are not being recalled and they're not being reported as much as they used to. So again, it's about reporting the data and getting the information so we can know it. So recently we had a Ready Pack Food recall 4 salad kits due to possible health risks from Listeria monocytogenes, and we'll talk about this organism a little bit when we go through the presentation. And so my personal thing is if you have those, I don't trust the bag salads because there's always a recall on them. And I've seen how those are produced. It's really, really, really difficult to keep it safe. And as opposed to if you have 1 head of lettuce that's contaminated in those bag lettuce, what's happening if you have 1 lettuce head that's contaminated, you are cutting it up and spreading it across hundreds and thousands of packaged salad. And then you can wash it, and then it's in an environment because Listeria, as you will hear later, can grow in the refrigerator. So you will hear a lot of recalls on bag salads, either the kits or the lettuce itself. So my recommendation to you, if you don't have to use bag salads, stay away from them. Now, I wanted to show you another type of recall, and this one was for frozen berries, and it was due to hepatitis A contamination. Hepatitis is dangerous because it can affect your liver. And hepatitis normally is transferred by food handlers. So when people are sick, they don't wash their hands, they don't use gloves. Most of that contamination, Hep A, you'll hear it called sometimes, it's what's causing that. Again, it's a virus and it survives the frozen refrigeration temperature. It doesn't grow, but it's frozen, and when you thaw it out, then you can get sick. Now, this one I wanted to put as an example for you, and I worked with this company, so I know their process really well. And so it's Ritz crackers. You may have seen it in the Caribbean, and it was sold across the US and probably in the Caribbean. And I'll come to that a little bit. And this one was for peanut allergies, and we'll talk about allergens in a little bit. Now, this wasn't because it had a bacteria in it. The product was labeled incorrectly. So on the label, it was labeled as cheese, but it actually had peanut butter in it. So because peanut allergies are so dangerous, if you had a peanut allergy and you looked at the label and you saw it said cheese, you would eat it and probably die. So again, labeling is so critical. In most of those big companies, they have a system that will detect the labels that you put on. So this one must have missed, and so they had to recall everything. And how did they know they had a problem? Because the 800 number, people were calling and reporting it. So now what I'm going to do is, before we get started, I'm going to play a little game with you. It's called Food Safety Jeopardy. And what is going to happen, I'm going to show you some questions, and somebody going to put their hands up and say the answer. So we'll go through one. Let's hope everything works here, Latoya. We're not going to do teams, it's just a quick answer. Now, this is just testing your knowledge before we do the training, so you can get an idea of where you are. So you're not going to be graded. Don't be afraid. So I'll say, for example, good agricultural practices for 100. And then when I click on it, that's your answer. You'll say, what is good agricultural practices? And your answer will be a set of standards for safe, sustainable production of crop. Got it? Questions? So the other one is brushing your teeth, taking a shower, hand washing, clean clothes. What's the question here? What do you think the question would be? Raise your hand
For those who
answer.
understand Jeopardy.
What
is good hygiene?
So
Very good. What is food? What is hygiene? Personal hygiene. Great. We're getting it. Thank you. Who was that?
Marcian,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else wants to try? We'll do two more. We can do hygiene or kitchen prep, microorganism, or miscellaneous. Don't be afraid. Anyone?
I would take kitchen prep for 200.
Kitchen prep for 200. Plastic cutting board. That's a tricky one.
What is tools?
What is tools? Close.
What is
So yeah, it's plastic cutting board is what is used instead of wooden cutting board.
okay.
And so for plastic cutting board, they say it's easier because the wood, you cannot clean it. So we use plastic cutting board. Let's do one more. Anybody?
Hygiene 500.
Oh, I like that. Go big. Hand washing. Any idea?
What is a way to keep yourself clean, your hand clean?
General idea. What's the key step in personal hygiene? So do you guys get the idea? We'll come back and do it again. It's just, and it will be in your presentation, so you can practice with your kids or your employees, okay? Good. So we will skip this and move on, hopefully. Okay. So let's talk about food safety culture. So food safety is not a program. It's not something that you learn and then you go away with it. It's not a project. It's a culture. So like many, it's a way of life for an entire community. This is how we do things. You know, we have culture in St. Lucia, in Dominica, they had the Creole Festival. That's a culture. We have Carnival in the Caribbean. That's a culture. We have nice beaches. That's a culture. We have hurricanes and how to deal with it, unfortunately. That's a culture. So food safety is something that it's a shared value, beliefs, and norms that affects mindset, behavior towards food safety across and throughout an organization. And then I will extend that to say across our entire life, right? So food safety, you can't say today I don't feel like washing my hands, or today I don't feel like separating the raw from the ready to eat. I'm too tired for that. Or today I don't feel like cleaning the floor, or those practices, they're good GMP practices, good manufacturing practices. You can't take it away for a day, or if you're in the office or you're cooking in a restaurant, you can't say, well, the customer didn't see me, I dropped the food on the floor, let me pick it up and just brush it off. So it is a culture, it's a mindset, and everybody has to have the mindset. So think about it this way: how you want to feed yourself and your family. And that carries all the way through to your life. So it is a culture, it's a mindset. So another quick question: which statement does not reflect a food safety culture? You can type the letter in the chat, or somebody can say it. We have anybody wants to take it? So it's A, all employees and owners are trained on food safety. All employees wash hands
We
after using
do
the
have a
bathroom.
response in the chat. Yeah.
See.
We do have several responses in the chat. I'm seeing all C's in the chat.
Yes, great. Hand washing is not always necessary on the farm because we are handling dirt. That is not reflecting food safety. Very good. So the basic principle of food safety. So we have 4 steps of food safety. If you think about it this way, no matter where you are, you think about the 4 steps: clean, separate, cook, and chill. Whether you're at home, whether you're on the farm, whether you're in the restaurant, whether you're visiting, those are the 4 basic steps of food safety: clean, separate, cook, and chill. So food safety hazards are biological, physical, and chemical. So biological is the one I showed you earlier with the Listeria monocytogenes. That's a biological hazard. A physical hazard is where you have metal, and we just had a big recall of chicken yesterday in the US because they had metal shaving in the chicken, and that can cause a hazard. I'll give you a little story. When I was working for Kellogg, we had a major cereal recall. And if we had to go to the government to talk about why we think it wasn't a hazard, because the pieces of metal we thought was so small, it wouldn't create a problem. But we had to recall it because the doctor at that time said it's cereal and it's for kids, and it had the potential of damaging your insides, your intestine, and creating bleeding. So even if it was so small, it wouldn't create a choking hazard, but it could damage your insides. So we had to recall all the food. So it's so critical when you are doing food on your line at home that you are checking for physical hazard. Now I put cherry pit on there. That's a hazard, but it's not a dangerous hazard because it's part of the fruit. So it will cause dental or something like that, but not a serious issue. And then chemical, you have, I put bleach on here, but a pesticide, but the biggest chemical hazard is allergens. And we'll talk a little bit about allergens. So let's talk about what is foodborne poisoning or foodborne illness. And I can guarantee every single one of us, every single 140 of us on that call has at sometimes experienced foodborne poisoning, including me. Sometimes it's mild, and sometimes it doesn't kill you, but you wish you were dead. So foodborne illness is an infection or an irritation of the GI tract. It can be caused by food or beverage that contains bacteria, parasite, viruses, or chemical. The number one cause of foodborne poisoning is the improper cooking and storage of food. Poor hygiene comes in second. So the way you cook your food, the way you store it, is the number one cause of foodborne illness, food poisoning. The people at the highest risk of dying from food poisoning are young children and elderly because of obvious, they are at risk. The symptoms: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. Now, you might suspect all of them, you might experience all of it, or you might experience one or two of it. The time of the assumption, we like to say when we get ill, we go back to the last thing that we eat. It's not, most likely, it's not the last thing that you ate. It's something that you ate maybe 8 hours ago. And we'll talk a little bit about that. About 600 million cases of foodborne illnesses per year. Unfortunately, with all the work that we have, all the protocol, that number is not going down, because you look at the different places and the different risk and how food is spread across, that 6 million cases of foodborne illness is from factories, from restaurants, from farms, and about 420,000 deaths from those, mostly, again, like we said, kids and older adults. So I'm not gonna ask you to, I'll just give you the answer. You can guess how many cases occurs in the Caribbean. The number is 1 in 49 or 142,000. But that number is very deceiving, because if you remember, I said that we don't have a great system to track foodborne illness around the Caribbean. So sometimes you will see it in the hotels are more likely to report it because the guests will go back to where they got sick from and go back to the country and report it. But locally, people are not typically reporting the illness, and we don't have a good system to report it. So that number is very low. It's not a true representation of what we have, not just in one island, but across the Caribbean. What to do if you suspect you have foodborne poisoning? Drink plenty of fluids, practice good hygiene, don't spread it around. Most people recover on their own without treatment. Seek medical help if you have bloody diarrhea. Avoid over-the-counter medicine. So what that means, it's like when we get sick, sometimes you want to take Pepto-Bismol if we're throwing up. But what that does, as much as it gives you a relief, it will make it last longer, because when you get foodborne poisoning, you want to flush the bacteria or whatever's in there out of your system. If you take like a Pepto-Bismol, then basically what it does, it stops it and it just delays it. I got foodborne poisoning in one of my trips to Mexico because I touched the ice accidentally. And I ended up taking it because I had to fly. So it delayed the symptoms. But when I got home, it started all over again. Symptoms typically occur within 6 to 72 hours after you consume contaminated food. So normally it's not the last thing you ate, and they can last from a few hours or weeks. And there really is no cure to foodborne illness. You just have to let it get through. It's prevention. Now, the symptoms, like if you have bloody diarrhea as a result of the foodborne illness, that can be treated. But the foodborne illness itself, you just have to let it run its course. So let's do microorganisms. So I like to put them in the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you'll remember it better. So the good microorganisms are the ones that helps us. And the one you will know the most is penicillin. That's made out of mold. Cheese is fermented. Yogurt, for we have probiotics, wine, and then all of those are the good microorganisms. We need them. And people like me who try not to get sick, my good microorganism load is very low. So when I do get a little bit of bad organism, I get sick fast because I don't have a good system to fight it. So the bad ones are bad microorganisms are organisms that will spoil your food and you can see them. So the sour milk, the mangoes that's rotten, the mold, the bananas, those are the bad microorganisms, not because they will make you sick, but because they will spoil your food. You can taste them, but they won't make you sick. It's affecting the quality, not the safety of the food. And then you have the ugly and the dangerous microorganism. That's your hepatitis. I showed you an example of a recall for Hep A. Salmonella, which is found in chicken and meat, and probably one of the things that makes us sick most often in the Caribbean. Listeria, this organism is dangerous because it is an organism that will cause people, that affects pregnant women, and it can cause abortion, and it also affects women of childbearing ages. For example, if we have in our lab, when we were working in the lab, if somebody is pregnant, they're not allowed to work with that organism because it can cause a woman to abort the babies prematurely. So pathogenic microorganism, might have pathogenic microorganism. Those are mostly the bad ones. When you get foodborne poisoning, you have two ways of getting foodborne poisoning. You get it through food infection or food intoxication. Infection means the bacteria is present or other microbes that infect the body after you eat the food. So you eat a piece of food that has salmonella, for example, the organism have to go into your system, grow, and then cause illness. So those take a little longer for you to get the symptoms. Now, the intoxication, you are taking in the toxin contained within the food, and it doesn't have to grow. It produces the enterotoxin and it makes you sick. And those are mostly like when spores, botulism, and those others, those are the intoxication. So you have two, food infection and food intoxication. Intoxication is like you're drinking the poison right away. Infection, it has to grow to be dangerous, is another way to simplify it. Again, we said the leading cause of food poisoning, eating or touching raw or undercooked chicken. Undercooked foods such as eggs or chicken, salmonella. We talked about that. Those are what the organism looks like under the microscope. You cannot see or you cannot smell a food that is contaminated with pathogen. So the food may look fine, but you cannot tell. The only time you will tell is if you have Clostridium and it's an intoxication, and you will see some swelling cans. You might hear your grandmother or your mama say, don't eat the swollen cans. That's because that it's probably contaminated with a botulism. But most foods, you cannot tell if they have a pathogen. You go quickly. Signs of salmonella infection is stomach cramps, nausea, fever, diarrhea. You get chills and vomiting. So if you ever get those signs, probably it's food poisoning. Don't ignore it. Keep hydrated. Ginger tea can make you feel comfortable, but it doesn't stop it. Okay, the next one, we have raw undercooked ground meat product, fecal contamination of product, and raw milk. So again, this one is a major foodborne poisoning. Can you guys see the whole screen? Latoya, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we are seeing it.
Okay, so E. coli again. So if you get E. coli poisoning, I call it the poop bacteria, because mostly it's when people don't wash their hands after using the bathroom. And if you go different places, you'll see people go to the bathroom and just walk out. Now, I've known to remind them nicely. My family thinks somebody's going to box me, but I just so nasty. People forget to wash their hands, and you never know where they are. And even if you wash your hands when you get out of bathroom, it's good practice to use a paper towel or something so you're not touching the handle, or use sanitizers. But E. coli is also contaminated water because of the debris from the cow manure and everything else that goes into that water. There was a couple of recalls for produce for lettuce because of E. coli, because the farmer had a cow pasture above where the farm was, and the runoff water came into the field and contaminated it, and they weren't aware of it. So major recall for that. Okay, signs of E. coli poisoning, very similar to salmonella. You'll see most of those are about the same. And I like to call them, sometimes you have a two-bucket disease, so it lets you go both ways. You're having diarrhea and you throw up. Those are the ones that make you wish you were dead, but mostly will not kill you. So we call those the two-bucket disease. Now, listeria we talked about, and listeria is affecting mostly pregnant women. And then cold cuts is the #1 source of listeria, because you're cutting the blades that they use to cut the cold cuts. They don't wash them, or it's not cleaned enough. It's a problem. Soft cheeses, And then Sprout. Sprout, for some reason, is high. You know, when you go into the restaurants and you have those fancy food and they sprinkle a little bit of Sprout on it, it'll be good to make sure that you tell them to put the Sprout on your food because I think they're just spreading some listeria on it. So I always ask to not decorate my food with Sprouts. And because most of those are raw, and if it's contaminated, you'll get sick. Now, Clostridium, we talked a little bit about it. Now, Clostridium is an interesting organism because it will cause paralysis. Very, very dangerous. Now, it's very uncommon to get this Clostridium botulism in an outbreak because a lot of people have learned how to control it. But again, it doesn't require oxygen to grow. So when you have canned product, what you're doing is driving away all the oxygen. And so you are leaving the spores of the botulism and they produce that toxin. That's an intoxication. Very dangerous. It was once said that 1 teaspoon of the pure toxin in the New York City water supply will infect everyone. Now, you might hear of Botox. Botox is using the Clostridium botulism. So when you see a Botox go wrong and the people are freezing their face, that's what's being injected. If it's a version of the toxin. Now, on this one, just so you know, there's something called infant botulism. And it only affects the infant because they cannot digest the spores. If we as adults digest the spores, we are good. Babies cannot digest spores. So, and honey is #1 in causing infant botulism. So if you have a baby, if they're teething, try not to feed them honey because you will have the spores, and because they cannot digest the spores, then it will cause infant botulism. For chemical hazards, pesticides, we all know that, especially for your farming, you know, pesticide residue can stay in your plants for a long, long time. In the Caribbean, we have all those pesticides we used to use in the bananas, and it's still in the ground, it's still in the water. And if you are making food to ship out, the #1 test that they look for is pesticide. There's a list of approved pesticides that I can put out, but then for the Caribbean, and see which one is approved and which one isn't. So it's not a zero pesticide residue. There's some approved pesticides that can be used. Food allergies. That is the #1 cause of foodborne illness globally. Now, I know in the Caribbean, I have found out that we don't worry too much about allergies. Peanut is the most deadly allergen you can find. My niece has peanut allergy, and her dad ate some peanut butter sandwich, and he was out and he gave her a kiss and her cheek, and in a matter of minutes, she was breaking out with the peanut allergies. The good news, if you have the EpiPen, it can be addressed immediately, but if not, it can be deadly. Now there's a list of eight major allergens. There's others that's not really allergic, but they will give a reaction. But food allergies is important. It's important for you at home. It's important for when you're making food, mostly to avoid cross-contamination. We had an incident of food allergy in Brazil, and the government told us it wasn't a problem. We could not recall it because people in Brazil don't suffer from peanut allergy. The only problem is the product was made in Brazil, but we were selling it globally. So we had to recall it, but it was difficult because the government would not allow us to recall it. So when you do your food safety programs at home, food allergy is a key chemical allergen. We talked a little bit about the physical hazards, and those are the hazards. So when we say when you go to work, using GMPs is not only for the hygiene, but it's also for physical hazard. So your rings, bird feathers, bones, nails, metal from a metal detector, you have it, pieces of a belt if you're using a belt, or buckets if you use buckets, those can end up in the food. And always think about, how would I feel if this was my food? And put that mindset, that culture in place. That's why they say not to use nail polish when you're working and then have your nails shut. Now, your jewelry, I know we've given a couple of Cracker Jack prices accidentally, that people who wear their rings or earrings and it falls in the food. Most big companies have metal detectors that will detect those before they get out to the consumer, but other small companies, not so much. I'll take a little break now. Just we've talked about a lot, and we'll do 2 questions just to wake you up on food safety. You ready? I hope everybody's still awake.
Yes, and additionally, in the question and answer area, we have 2 questions for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first one
Yeah.
from Sandra Carter, she asks, how does the Caribbean recall American foods? I have never heard about a recall in the Caribbean in connection with American food, even though we consume American food.
That is a very good question. And that's the dangerous part. So when the Americans send their food recall, the focus mostly, it's supposed to be that the information goes to everywhere the food is distributed. But what is happening in most cases, so if Kellogg made cereal, right, and they have a recall, you will have small companies going to a Costco and buying a box of cereal and shipping it down to the Caribbean. Those places, the company cannot track where this has been because they don't have it as one of the places. So that message never gets through. A couple years ago, we had a recall food cereal, and lo and behold, when I came to St. Lucia, that food product was on the shelf. So that has been a challenge. And most big companies will try to send a message team, but it doesn't get through because the food is not directly from the company. It's a third party buying it from a wholesaler, and there's no way to track where it is to give that information. So what most companies are doing, like Kellogg or Kraft, the bigger companies, they will put it out to the different companies and hope that it gets to across the board. But you can see how challenging it is if they don't know where that food is. But that's a problem. That's a major problem, not just for the Caribbean, for Africa and the developed countries. When that food get recalled, most of the time it doesn't get to us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The second question now, Jacqueline would like to know what systems or technologies are in place to monitor food safety?
Say the question again, sorry. Can you repeat
What
it?
systems or technologies are in place to monitor food safety?
So there is some really great systems. Unfortunately, it's not for the underdeveloped countries because we don't have the resource. This is one of the things that makes me so sad and so sick, and CAFTA and everybody else is trying. That's why this organization, the Caribbean Task Force on Food Safety, that's why I was so excited to see the work that they're doing. But there is systems that goes in, we call it whole genome sequencing, where if somebody gets sick in the developed countries in the US, that the government in the lab can test that food. They can test the organism. They'll tell you where it came from, what time it was there, and track it back to what food it was in. That's called whole genome sequencing. Then they have that. Then they have the regular test that you can do testing, and they can find that in the US, each hospital has a way of reporting. So if you go to the hospital and you get sick, that goes automatically to the Center for Disease Control from all the states. And that's how you know you have a recall. In one of the recalls I had in one of my companies, that's how I found it because people were calling in sick from different parts of the country. And they were able to do the test and link it back to the food because they did the survey. All the people were eating that cereal. In the Caribbean, we don't have a good way of tracking it. We don't do track and trace. We don't do recalls. So it's very, 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 very limited to be able to track foods and how to use those technologies. I'm hoping that CAFDA will be able to get that eventually. And I think Jamaica has a system that's more advanced than most. And I think Trinidad has one. But there's a lot of good technologies to track and trace. One of the things we have to do better in the Caribbean is to do a traceability. So put our labels, know what food we did, where, how, and what it was provided. So if you look at most of the foods that's made from outside, there's a code on it. That code will tell you the expiration date, the manufacturing facility, where it was made, and who made it, and what time, what shift. So there's lots of technologies to be able to track that, but it's not available to the Caribbean or Africa in most of those places. Does that answer the question? I know it's not probably what you want to hear, but
Can I ask
we
a
have a
question?
long way to go.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned the food labels. Wouldn't that be some a responsibility of the bureaus of standards in countries to ensure that the products are labeled properly?
You would think, right? Unfortunately, a lot of our policies are top down. So I went to the Bureau of Standard and I say St. Lucia. Like since I've been doing this training, I've been trying to find where can I get list of records for the Caribbean. Unfortunately, I still haven't found one. But the Bureau of Standards, when you go through and you look at them, all that information is available, but it's top down. So the people that really needs it don't know where it is. Like most of you as farmers would not know or it'll be very difficult to find it. And the other problem is there is no resources to verify that people are doing it. So for example, I work for Kellogg, so I put my labels on, I have policies and standard. I get checked by audits. 4 or 5 different agencies will check me. The companies I'm selling for will check me. The consumers will check me and verify it. And you get fined, especially for an allergen. Now, in the US, recall is not mandatory. Very, very seldom will you have a mandatory recall. Most companies, when they are notified of food, they will automatically recall the food. But again, the Bureau of Standards in the Caribbean do not have the resources to verify that people are labeling correctly. So we have a lot of work to do. And
Yes, we do.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was concurring with you and said, yes, we do. But we have one hand up and we have two questions in the question and answer segment. I don't know if you want us to proceed with the break, looking at the Jeopardy questions, or you would like to take
No,
those
let's do the
questions now.
questions instead of the Jeopardy. I prefer the questions.
Okay then.
And we'll skip
So
the Jeopardy.
I'll go first to Verna. You may unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hi, yes. So I am wondering, right, if the bureau aren't they acting as like double standard, because they are to check safety and everything for food in our countries. They have their officers, they go, they check for prices and all sorts of other things that they really should be checking for, because the prices are ridiculous. But aren't they too supposed to make sure that we are safe? Because like you rightfully said, there are corner shops that don't buy directly from the manufacturer. So if they stay abreast of the information that's coming out from the US or the UK or Canada, that they have to do a recall on this product, are they supposed to notify not only the bigger companies on the islands but the smaller shops as well, or keep putting out notice until everybody gets it? Because case in point, during the COVID, when formulas was scarce, there was also a recall on a formula. I know that because I was buying baby formula at the time.
Yep.
And I was notified by one of my friends from Consumer Affairs that there's an issue with formula. So this is the number, the batch number, and the date of release, and something else she told me to look for. And so whenever I went to the stores, I actually checked for those things for a very long time. But I remember when I was going to Best Buy to purchase, they were already hauling everything off the shelves with those batch numbers attached.
Yeah.
So aren't they acting as a double standard, because they want the shopkeepers to do their jobs, but they're not doing their jobs in making sure that the food sold on island are actually safe for people to consume?
Again, I don't know it's so much a double standard as that they don't have the resources. They don't have enough people to go and check, right? And they don't have the resources to teach people of what to do. So the food coming into the Caribbean, like the baby food. So I went back to the FDA and then gave them hell about making sure that the company, because I knew the person who was working for that company, to ensure that that baby food, that they were going to send out press releases to those islands. Now it's for the government then to spread the press release to make sure all the food is off the shelf. But in the Caribbean, we have expired foods being sold on shelf. Every time I go there, I pull expired food off the shelves. So we don't have the resources, unfortunately, to monitor that. And CAFTA and those other agencies, we need to put the resources behind it. The regulators, the companies, everybody needs to work for us to get to that level. People bring food without declaring it. We know we can get away with those food. You put it in your bag, you put it whatever, you put it in the bottom of the barrel, and you put it on shelf. Nobody knows, It's hard to trace it when you lose the traceability on it. As sad as it sounds, and I remember that baby food very well. I was intimately involved with FDA, asking them to make sure that they get that message out, not just the Caribbean, but to Africa, because that baby food was getting everywhere. So I don't have a good answer. I don't know if it's a double standard. I think mostly it's not, they don't have the resources. And it's unfortunately, by the time we find it, it's too late, right? Any other question?
Yeah,
Yes,
well, we
hello
do
there.
have.
Hi.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, hello there. I just want to ask a question. Is there any trading standards authority in St. Lucia? Because here is the thing. I am from the UK. I know, yes, it is, first world, country. But one of the things that happens is on the docks, trading standards are there to check on foods that are, because there are so many, say for example, cereals that are being, they're not even reaching the shores of the UK, that's from the US. So I would assume that a lot of the things that does not get to the other countries from America, they easily send it down to St. Lucia because is it, well, to the Caribbean. Does
But
that
it's
mean it is acceptable for
no.
those products that are banned from, to the UK, they're sending them down to the Caribbean?
No, I don't think that's what's happening. I
Okay.
think it's people buying it third hand because the big companies, when the product is not good and it's food poisoning, they will not sell it. They will self-destruct it, and you have to have somebody witnessing the destruction every package, and you have to reconcile or you get fined. So I can tell you, big companies, medium companies, they are not shipping food directly to the third world countries if it's a food safety poisoning. But the food are getting through to third party who either bought the food and didn't pay attention to the recall in India, in all the places in Africa, in Peru, in I've seen it. The food, the people don't have food to eat, but they get it down and they sell it. And so the agencies don't have a good way to track it because it's not coming through a regulatory or a place. Somebody's shipping it in and selling it without them knowing. But it's not the companies selling it out deliberately because they know it's poison and selling it to other countries. That's not happening. That I know because there is a lot of checks and balances. But if somebody already bought it, like in India, we found a whole batch of cereal. And it was Kellogg cereal, but we were not aware of it because somebody went to Costco, bought it, shipped it to India, and was selling it.
Okay, let's take another product, which is cheese. And in the last a few years, there were plastic cheese being sold in the supermarkets, and it was acceptable. How do you deal with something like that? I
It
mean,
was
in
being
the
sold
UK,
where?
plastic cheese was being sold in the supermarket at Macy's. You know, there were complaints all over St. Lucia and even other Caribbean islands.
Was it
And
really plastic cheese, or was it the cheese quality was so bad it tastes like plastic?
yes, that's one of the things I was told.
It
I
was real
personally,
plastic.
it's worth, for some reason, it was real plastic. And I'm not making this
So
up.
there's food fraud, right?
Mm,
Now, I know there is, unfortunately, and mostly China,
yeah.
where you have food fraud, where people are literally putting, like rice was one of them.
Mm,
They
and
create
eggs.
plastic that tastes like rice and they
Mm,
manufacture it and mix it in. So that's
mm.
called food fraud. In the olive oil, they will do the same thing. They will give you subpar. So that's food fraud. That's people that's out there creating those. Now, I don't know how they get to the Caribbean, but you don't have no way of testing it and where you're buying it for. I'm sure where they bought it for was not from a major company. It's somebody they bought it from the outside somewhere that they don't have no way of tracking it.
But it is being sold at Macy's. So here's the
Yeah,
question I'm asking.
That Marcy should be the one. I'm surprised Marcy is putting plastic cheese on it because Marcy has standards on where they accept the food.
Okay. Hmm.
So I haven't heard about it, but I know there's companies out there in China that will do food fraud and create stuff just to make money. And you can't tell unless you taste it.
Here is the thing. If there is, to me, I believe that if trading standards is doing their job, I'm not saying that they are not, those things could be stopped straight from
It's true. That's the work we have to do. That's why CAFTA and everybody else, the standards are there. Now we have to find people to implement it. We take all the standards. If you look at any of the standards we have, it gives you a headache just to try to read it. I tried reading some of our standards in the Bureau of Standards. By the time we were at 2 pages, I had no idea what it was saying. So can you imagine a regular person trying to read the standards? So we have some work to do from regulators to simplify it. We write a lot of policies, but we don't have good implementation and good verifications of it.
We are in the 21st century. I believe that a lot of changes has to be made. And
It
as you are
does,
aware,
and
food
it didn't.
security, yeah,
It
food
will take
security,
some time and resources. It's not, and you know what? Unfortunately, in the US, it took a big disaster to get people to step up their standards, and they have dollars because remember, food safety was never considered top of mind. People would think about how much money I'm making, how much package I'm making. And even right now in the US, people will put food safety second. If you go to the CEO and you talk to them about food safety, they don't want to hear it. So could you imagine in the Caribbean where we don't have the resources, food safety is not considered a major cost until they have a problem. And in the Caribbean, you don't have no way to report it. There's no accountability. The poor people get sick and nobody's held accountable. Unless we can do that, we cannot get those other things in place. It becomes a secondary requirement. I can ask you how many companies have a food safety budget? Very few people put it in their business plans. The fact that we are even talking about it at Helen's Daughters is major. That's unheard of that farmers would get food safety training. So yes, I agree with you. We have a long way to go, but this is a start by working with it, working with the regulators. I work with the Bureau of Standards. I try to help put this in place and make sure that we are getting that information in.
Well, we need to lobby the government a bit more, if you ask me.
Let's save the discussion so we can get through the other ones. I like the discussion, but for the sake of timing, let's try to get along and then we'll come back again and talk more about it, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Latoya, we're good to go? All right, so I gave you a little brief about just the principles of food safety. There's the bacteria. When you hear about food safety, and hopefully you get an understanding for what's behind it. And then microorganisms, again, you cannot see microorganism, not even one of them. You'd have to have a lot. You cannot see it without a microscope. So you don't know when it's there. You just have to assume. You'll see the dirt, you'll see everything that will encourage microorganisms, but it's very, very difficult to detect with the naked eye. So let's switch a little bit to kitchen and personal hygiene. So what do you see here? You see some families having a great meal, everybody's enjoying it. And then if you are like me, before you eat, you go to the back in the kitchen and you see this. Now, if you did not go in the back of the kitchen, after you eat and you pass there, then you decide, oh my God, you want to throw up. But imagine in a restaurant, that could be what are you saying? And I know this is exaggerating it, but not really exaggerating it. So when you go out and you look at food, make sure that you are thinking, again, each and every one of us can make a difference by what we think, the awareness, how we teach our family, how we get our food. So if you look at this kitchen, and you can put either your hands up, how many issues can you identify by yourself? You don't have to say it, but then when I put it back, you'll see how many you got right. Okay, so sorry. All right, so here are some of the things that we have, and I'm sure most of you got those. We got the roaches. Why is a roach a food safety hazard? Because, like a fly, it goes everywhere. I will tell you, if you think about where flies land and you think about a fly that falls on your food, just imagine that and what that fly or that roach is bringing with it. And that's food you're consuming. So think about that when you are handling your food. I know in the Caribbean, flies sometimes in the summertime because the fruits is everywhere, but we want to try to control it. The sponge. A sponge is a very, very dangerous thing because it harbors the microorganisms when you wash. And I'm not preaching to the choir. I preach that in my house all the time, which sometimes it doesn't take hold. The sponges, if you can put them to dry, wash them with soap. But what's happening is if you have a sponge, you can spread it and wipe the bacteria that's had time to grow across. You have raw and ready to eat. So your fruits is next to your raw food. The garbage can is overflowing, the dishes, and the fridge is not kept properly. So hopefully you guys got most of it. Um, Again, improper food storage and food shopping. So what's wrong with the food in the refrigerator on the left side? Anybody can guess? No?
They are stored in incorrect compartments of the fridge.
Or how should it be stored?
Oh, Lord, you're juggling my I can't recall exactly, but I know there should certain things should be stored in a particular category in the fridge. And certain things should not be stored in the handle because of the opening of it. So it has more exposure to the warm air that can produce bacterial growth and all of that.
That's true. But in this picture here, so you see the raw chicken and the salmon is stored above what? They're ready to eat vegetables that most likely is not gonna get cooked and eaten raw. So if you, and you can see the bottom here, if you have leaks or everything else is dripping into the vegetables.
Correct. Sorry, I did not pinpoint it because I couldn't see exactly.
Yeah, you are on the right track. So what you have to do is put the ready to eat food above and put the meats in the bottom to minimize the contamination. And what you said about the handle is true because the temperature at the handle, because of the opening, it will lose it. The other thing is also you have to label, although this one has tag on it, but labels not properly, but make sure you label it. Same thing when you go grocery shopping, when you separate remember we say separate, chill? Make sure that the raw is separated from the finished, and then you are stacking them in a way they're not causing cross contamination.
What I think also you have to when you're doing the labeling, you have to say expiry date because I think some food
Yes.
in the fridge at a particular period.
Yep. You have to put the date on it. Yep. Good catch. Now, this is a key slide that you guys, if you can print it, it'll talk about where and what your storage is, high risk food and low risk. And it says where the bacteria will grow and where it will not grow. So if anything else, you guys can print one of those from your presentation when you get it and put it on your refrigerator, put it in your factory, wherever, so you can have an idea of what's the harmful area and where's the safe area to keep your refrigerator and what's happening there, okay? It's in your deck. You can print a copy. So, again, hygiene, eating raw batter or dough. I know like I said, I grew up in St. Lucia and I was supposed to be going to medical school and I became food. And then I thought I was a big shot. When I went home, I tried to tell my grandmother what to do. Of course, I got smacked, but we all have eaten raw batter and tasted the dough, right? And you say, well, I didn't die. But why is that a problem? What's the problem with eating raw dough and raw batter? Nobody? You guys still there? Hello?
Eggs in the
Anybody
batter,
home?
uncooked
Yes,
eggs
we
in the
are
batter,
hearing you.
What?
uncooked eggs in pig batter.
Yeah. So you put in raw eggs, and flour is notorious for bacteria. But by itself is not a problem. But once you mix it, it has a lot of salmonella and E. coli. Think about how flour is made, and then you add eggs to it, and then you get salmonella and potentially E. coli poisoning. So I like to say one lick might be your last. So before you give your baby or somebody else that cake batter to taste, think twice. Um, Cross-contamination risk, throwing a marinated meat on the countertop. I know we do that a lot. My household is guilty of doing that, and it turns my head inside out. Because what you are doing and putting the food on the counter, even though it's going to cook, bacteria needs time and temperature to grow. So if you put the food on the countertop, then you can get cross-contamination. And sometimes some of the bacteria that you produce can survive the cooking step, or you can produce toxin that can survive. And even if you cook it, it might cause poisoning, or you get cross-contamination. So the idea is to thaw it either in hot water for a short time or thaw it in the refrigerator, or if you have a microwave, thaw it in there.
May I say something? From my when I was doing my I have a 5-year certificate of food handlers out of the state, and one of our when we was doing our research training, we taught out our meat. It should be taught out on if you're telling it out, it's on the running water, consistent running water, not settlement. I do not let it to thaw out fully. You should be just thaw out to where you could just cut it and just get it quickly into the pot or put it back into the refrigerator.
Correct. But we know in the Caribbean, we do it. My grandmother used to do it. My husband likes to do it, even though I want to pull his head out every time, but he's old school. But we have to be aware. Now, this one, I get a lot of chat from this one. So the idea is we shouldn't be washing raw meat, chicken, or turkey. And I know every time I do that, everybody goes, oh, that is just too nasty. Why are you not gonna wash your chicken and why are you not gonna wash your meat? And as Black people, that is disgusting, I know. However, the reason why they say not to wash the chicken is you see how she's washing it on there? It can spread the salmonella. So raw chicken, raw turkey, there's no such thing as salmonella-free or E. coli-free chicken or raw meat. And once you rinse it or wash it out, even though you think you are cleaning it, the droplets, remember I said the bacteria, you can't see them, will spread and then cross-contaminate your utensils and everything else. That's the main reason why they say not to wash it. Now, I say that because in the Caribbean, when I say that, everybody just thinks I am just the nastiest person telling them not to wash the chicken. If you have to wash your chicken, try to contain it in a bucket or someplace where you are not spreading the germs, because you might think you're not spreading it, but the tiny microscopic droplet has 1 million bacteria in it. I demonstrated that one time by putting dye on it, and you would be amazed to see how far it travels. So yes, if you want to wash your chicken, if you want to wash your turkey, use precaution. Put them in a container, put them someplace, and make sure you do a complete scrub, not with only hot water, but with detergent and sanitizer. Okay? So how many of you all are disgusted that I say not to wash the chicken? All right, from a time standpoint, Latoya, I can skip the test, right? If we have time, we'll come back to it.
Okay, yes, we can do that.
Yeah. So we go again, good personal hygiene, you have to wash your hands regularly. Now, COVID gave us a good lesson, although we are forgetting it right now. Washing our hands, when COVID came, everybody was washing their hands till they pulled the skin off. And now we are forgetting that, but we touch our hands with everything. So we should be able to wash our hands. And there's proper way to wash your hands. Don't just drop the water. For kids, we tell them you say the ABC song to know that you wash it. You wash between, you wash the back, you wash under your fingers, and then do not cross-contaminate it. So when you finish washing, you're like a surgeon. You touch your elbows, not your hands, and then use a paper towel versus a regular towel, because the regular towel will also create a average point for bacteria. If you're using a towel, make sure you wash it and sanitize it. Again, especially after using the bathroom, I talked a little bit about that because that's the infestation for E. coli, and you don't want anybody having your poop with you when you leave the bathroom. Leave that business alone, leave it there, wash it out. You have to shower or bathe, especially if you are working in a food place, in a restaurant. You don't want to go there and see somebody that's messy, not clean, dirty clothes serving your food. So think about the same thing when you run your own farm, your own operation. Again, clean clothes, to not prepare food when you're sick. I know most people want to go to work because they say it's not a lot, or because you can't afford to not get sick, or your boss is not going to allow you to not get sick. But try not to go to work when you're sick because you don't want to cross-contaminate or spread the germs to others. And then if you have a wound, cover the exposed wound without to avoid contamination. Not just for for the person around you, but you can get infection, not food poisoning, but you can get the bacteria into your hands. You know, we have those flesh-eating bacteria that's going around. You don't want it to get into your hand to cause a problem. So we have to have good personal hygiene practices to prevent the transfer of dangerous microorganisms to our food. Again, wash hand with soap and water. So the reason why you have to wash it with soap and water, the water will take away the dirt. Just rinse it with water. What it does, it takes away the dirt. It doesn't take away the bacteria. The soap and the rubbing of your hands is what will take away the bacteria. So you must always use water and soap. And the water should be warm, not cold. So when you go to restaurants, you always see you should have hot water. Now, I know Dominica just had a festival, St. Vincent had their independence, St. Lucian had Creole Day. And you go to all those festivals and you see food cooking and people are dancing. What's missing at those festivals?
A compartment to wash your hands.
Wash your hands, exactly.
Clean
Oh, what else
running
is missing?
water.
No hand wash stations. What else?
I was saying clean running water, because you could have a wash station, but it's just still water.
What about bathrooms?
Yeah, portable
Exactly.
toilets.
They have
Yeah.
potable toilets,
If
portable
you're
toilets.
lucky,
If
but
they-
most people don't. And when you do have the portable toilet, the food preparing is so far from the toilet, nobody's going to stop. You know, last year I had an example and it was bad, and some of you may have heard it. In Jamaica, not to pick on them because they're going through something now, but I don't know if you guys heard about the crab lady. And it wasn't unique to her because she was very popular. She made crabs and everybody would go there. And I guess the other ladies got jealous. So they taped her using the bathroom and using her hands and not washing it and coming back and handle the crab. So that made the whole event global. And everybody stopped buying it. But that, unfortunately, was not the exception because at those street fairs, you don't have the resources for people to use their washroom. Some people will have a little bit basin of water, but again, it's contaminated. You handling money. And for the ones that have the gloves, gloves have its place, but some people use and abuse the gloves to protect their hands versus protecting consumers. If you use gloves, you should be able to change them and wash them. But handling of food and washing your hands with soap and water is critical. So every time you guys go out to those festivals, so one thing somebody said is if you drink a lot of alcohol before, then it will sanitize your stomach so you won't get sick. I don't promote that. But just be careful. When I go out to street vendors, I will normally eat the thing I see that they have on the barbecue right there. But even on the barbecue, you have to be aware that you have the raw one and the finished one on the same plate, or they're using the same fork that they use to turn the raw food to turn the fresh food. So just be aware, one, as a consumer, and two, as a vendor. And I know none of that is new to you, but just the awareness, right? Brushing your teeth at least twice a day, wash the body often, wear clean clothes, and seek medical advice. Now, I said foodborne illness is not curable, but the signs of it, so it can affect your intestine, it can cause bleeding. But there's no really cure for foodborne illness. It has to make its way out once you get it. The key is prevention. Okay? Now, I wanted to get through this first and leave us enough time for discussion. If we have more time, then we'll go back to the question. But I wanted to have discussions and questions because I gave you a lot of information, not new information, but information for awareness and what it means. And then next session, we'll talk about how does it apply to farming and at home. So I'm going to open the floor now, Latoya, for a discussion on anything that we talked about or anything that you have a concern with from a food safety or anything you want to share with the group. I know you guys are not shy and nobody's sleeping still. I hope you guys are awake. Okay?
Okay, so do you want us to take questions or want just the mics open for persons to have discussions?
Whichever one works best.
Okay, so we probably can start with some questions from the
Or you
question
can
and
put it in
answer
the chat
segment.
if you want to.
Okay, so the question and answer, we'll take a question from Nancy. Is there a difference between food poisoning and food allergy when reporting cases? Why is it important to know the difference in food safety?
Good question. So they both are foodborne illnesses. Foodborne illness is typically bacteria, virus. It's an organism that makes you sick. Allergens are caused by chemical It's a chemical reaction. No bacteria is involved. It's your immune system, like the peanut allergy, and it prevents you from breathing. It gives you hives. That's an immunoreaction, not a bacteria reaction. And allergens are typically more severe because if you don't treat it, because it prevents you from breathing, right? If you know anybody who has an allergic reaction, unfortunately, I lost one of my colleagues 2 years ago. She was allergic to fish, but she wanted to take her daughter out, and they went into a seafood restaurant, which don't ask me why, if you know you're that sensitive. She didn't have the food, but she went to the Japanese restaurant where they cook on the stove, and the fumes from the seafood gave her a reaction. Unfortunately, it was too late and she didn't make it, but it's really, really dangerous.
Okay.
And you remember
Thank
that
you.
one I showed you where they had to recall the food, even though the food was okay, but it didn't say it had peanuts in it. So
So
big
thank you.
difference.
It is, definitely. So we'll now take a question from Teresa. Teresa, you may now speak.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Teresa.
I am so, how would I say, so elated. I am so, the different words I cannot even use at this point in time. I am so happy, but at the same time, I a little sad. You know why?
Mm-mm.
I'm a chef by profession.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm a chef by profession and the different hotels that I've worked, I cannot eat out.
Yep.
And while you're saying that I'm trying to say, okay, one of these days I will go to a restaurant and you come and you say these things and you're preventing me from going out. You do it again. Now, the thing about it is I did elderly care and I did a child development, and everything you're saying there was in all the courses that I took.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever you're saying, it just reminded me of again. So what I'm trying to figure out is why would Massey cut up my vegetables for me and put it in a tray for me to buy? Why would they make salad and put it in a tray for me to buy? I don't know what happened behind the scene. How would I buy that? I have experience. There's a home that I worked in 2 weeks ago. I watched the man brought a pack of those vegetables and he said that's for his wife, for me to do for his wife. I did prepare it, but I looked at it and I'm saying to her, I don't like that kind of vegetable. She said, oh, but he bought it for me. I did it, and by the next day, it was already gluey, that kind of stringy gluey thing. And I said to her, this is it. You don't buy salad that's already made at the supermarket because you don't know. I've been in the States and I saw people come from the bathroom and I think them white people, they're just sickening me. The people that wash their hand.
So that is true. And so I wouldn't say you don't go out to eat. So
No.
My family didn't used to go out with me because I used to call things out. And so they put this thing like, if you call it, then you have to pay for the food. So I keep my mouth shut.
No. Well, my children, I was looking at the hotel, it was small, and I used to always prepare food home, and I used to always tell them to wash their hands and explain. So when COVID came, it was not a problem for me. Everybody was already doing that same thing, and it's just sad. It's just sad. The thing about
It
it
is
is for
sad,
me,
and you have to be aware, right?
yes, for me,
And
the
then
thing
we
that
have to do training. And that's why I
yes,
like what Helen's daughter is doing. It's just the training.
and I'm so glad. Yesterday I was saying to somebody, but I am in an agriculture class. And the amount of things that I learn, I want to know for sure I'm in an agriculture class because the things that I'm learning is more than an agriculture class.
Because it makes you a holistic person.
A holistic person, yeah.
Yeah.
So and it's good. So because I do elderly care, I take care of elderly. So obviously you have to give them healthy foods to keep them safe. You take care of children, so you must prepare children food in a particular way. And all these things about the allergies, I had to do a whole allergy course. So, you know, the thing about it is why I did it, because I never knew I was allergic to particular seafoods like the shrimps and stuff. I'm an Seventh-day Adventist, so I don't eat those things. So the chef that normally prepare those things wasn't there, but the people ordered it. So what I did, I double glove, and I prepared the shrimp. There was a butterfly shrimp and a coconut shrimp. I had to prepare it. I did prepare it. The chef, the other lady would never not see nothing to do. Go and tell the man, the person that cook it did not taste it, and the man now want to know how she didn't taste and the thing tasting so good. When I go not knowing, the man would give me a kiss on my cheek. Let me tell you, for the whole night I have ice on my thing, and then they call the doctor, and the doctor say, a good thing you did not eat it. You understand? So then I get to understand that I'm allergic to those things. I don't eat those things. I've never eaten it, but because he kissed me on my cheek, I get to realize that. And
So
I will remind the people, all of us that are on the forum at this moment, EpiPen is not a cheap thing. It is not $1. So if you know you're allergic to certain things, do not interfere with it, because EpiPen is very expensive. It's not even in St. Lucia, it's a US price. So when you look for it, why you know you're allergic to certain things, you will want to go and take it because you want to take it? No. Use the common sense and the wisdom that God gave you.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm grateful and I'm thankful for the class that we're on tonight, and we learn a lot of things. And for us, keep washing your hands. Those that have the long nails that just like preparing food, keep your nails always. If you want your long nails, always clean under your nail before you go and prepare food, because you can get yourself sick and your children sick. Your rings need to be moved when you cooking. Remove your ring, your earrings, particular earrings you cannot have. You may have a little stud, but you cannot have those earrings that hanging in your head. Your chain not supposed to be. All those things catch
You're
bacteria.
not supposed to have any jewelry when you're handling food.
Yes, even the perfume that you put on your clothes. Sometimes if you cook food, you will realize the food is tasting like the perfume you put on you. So you have to know what to do. So I'm grateful and thankful.
So I think we found our person for our summary.
You know, I was about to say that, because I thought she started it already, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
So here we go. For Thursday, for the start of the class, you have been volunteered to do a summary, a recap of what happened on today's lessons. So
I have
thank
so
you
many things
so
on my
much.
mind. I have to try to remember that. You give me a bird.
Yeah,
You
well,
already
thank you so much.
started, so you had no problem with that. Okay.
You just
Thank
continue
you.
that. So we'll now move to Bernice. Bernice, you may unmute your mic and ask your question. Bernice Chase. Okay,
Hi.
yes.
Hi, good night.
Bernice.
The question was answered earlier. It had to do with the salmonella and the eggs and so on.
Okay, that's fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernice.
Thank you too. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any more? Let me see what we have in the chat. EpiPen is $500. Is that EC dollars? The EpiPen.
Hi, good night, everyone.
Hi.
Well, one of the things while I hook it, I went back to my studies when I did my training. Even look at the things that when we're not supposed to cut fruits and let them open. So very often.
I think I just got this. Melissa, you may ask a question.
But somebody was talking.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So
About
what
the
I
cut
know,
fruits?
yes, the cut fruits. So a lot of persons still, when you cut a fruit, it's supposed to be on a chill ice, and we still see it in St. Vincent now, and I still see it on the supermarket. On the roadside, that they have it in the normal atmosphere like that, and it could create growth of certain bacteria and so forth. Even we went to the cotton board a while ago. For the plastic cotton boards, you're supposed to have different coloration to say which cut the chicken, what cut the fruits, the vegetables, and so forth in your kitchen. So I don't know if there's anything there health department could do to assist in trying to educate the public about this the safety of having their cut, like the watermelons and so forth, on the ice after being cut?
So two things happen with the cut. So the real reason why cut fruits are a risk because of what you're using to cut the fruits. So the outside of the fruit is contaminated. For example, cantaloupe. So when I bring cantaloupe home, I use a little bit of bleach in my water to rinse it out, right? Because when you cut the fruit, you were using the knife and you were contaminating the outside of the fruit with the inside of the fruit. So the watermelon, when you cut it from outside in, whatever is on the outside, you're exposing it to the inside and then it grows. So that's the main reason for the open and cut fruit. You can do that and reduce the risk by cleaning the outside of the fruit before you cut it. And it's always good practice to keep it refrigerated. However, remember I said you have this organism called listeria that will grow in refrigerated temperatures. So again, the main thing is prevention. So where refrigeration is going to stop most of the E. coli or the salmonella, it will not stop the hepatitis or the listeria. So always use prevention. Use the utensil that you're using, you're not contaminating it, and you're not taking the outside of the fruit. And we'll talk about that tomorrow, next week, on Thursday, about how you can cross-contaminate it. So it's all about preventing the cross-contamination for those cut fruits.
Yeah, yes. But also, I also did a certificate in occupational health and safety, and I'm present with my master's in occupational hygiene. And bleach is one of the chemicals that we are trying to reduce from using within our household now. So I'm not really for bleach. Don't mind.
I know, but for me, I know it's safe, and most people don't like it because it's not good for the environment. But you use 2 drops for me, it's better than me getting bacteria. They are trying to get vinegar, but vinegar is not as effective. And so if you have other organic ones, let the group know, but it's very few that's out there that's been proven to be as effective. People use vinegar, which
Yes, I know
helps, but not
vinegar
very effective.
now, but I'm not too sure of any other thing. As I said, I'm just going back into do my master's now. So as information that will gather, I will, if I still a part of the group after, I could always pass information over so that we could, educate ourselves and move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say something about the bleach as we say that?
Yeah.
Okay, Teresa, can we get another question, please?
Okay.
If you don't mind, we can probably look at it at the next session. We'll now take questions out of the chat. And Marisa wants to know, how can we deal with contaminated produce and temperature control failure in the Caribbean?
If I knew that answer, I would not be here. I'd be a millionaire. But what we can do for ourselves is and we'll talk about produce. Fruits, it starts at the farm on how we grow it, how we transport it. We talk about farm to fork. From the harvesting, from the seedling, it starts there. Because there's studies that shows that the fruits, when you grow them, in tomatoes especially, if the leaves get contaminated when the tomatoes is growing, it can absorb bacteria and grow internally. That's not as common, but it's there. So you have to start from the farm, and that's where you guys become key, right? Because once you get the fruit contaminated, you cannot wash it out. You cannot wash out the bacteria on the produce because it is so hard. If you look at a leaf of lettuce, you can take the dirt out, but it's so hard to get the bacteria out. You're probably never gonna get it out. So you have to prevent it. And it's in harvesting, it's in packaging, and it's in storage. Now, in the Caribbean, we don't have enough refrigerated trucks or other stuff to bring. But as the farmers, you can use your coolers, put ice on it as best as you can to keep it cool. But on a broader sense, we don't have enough refrigerated capacity, even for our fish and our meats. That's a big problem. So how are you going to do it? We need all three legs, the companies, the regulators, the farmers, the agencies have to come together and propose and fund it. So when you talk to your politicians, that's one of the things you need to help them understand.
So I think that's an option.
1 second. One of the things that helps us in produce is we don't hold on to it too long. Most of the time we consume it right away. So that's the saving grace, but the risk is still there. It is scary. The people at the hotels, they control it better because they don't want the guests to get sick. But we also have to protect ourselves and our everyday lives. So I don't have a better answer for you. We know what we need to do, but for each of you, as you grow food, we'll talk about tomorrow what we have to do to prevent it. When I say tomorrow, I mean Thursday.
Thursday, yes,
Yeah.
at the next session.
Yeah, next session.
Okay, so getting into that, and please feel free to put a disclaimer here. Happy would like to know if you think St. Lucia is doing a good job of food safety.
Oh, St. Lucia is trying, and not only St. Lucia. I was just in St. Kitts, I was in Dominica, Grenada, and where did I go? On a cruise. We have a long way to go in food safety. In the bigger establishments, we are trying. In the masses, there's some programs. I think what we need, and in St. Lucia, is we need more resources. We need, like I said, we have all the policies, but we don't have any way to enforce it. So if I have a label right now and it's not right, nobody cares. Nobody's holding me accountable but myself. And I don't have any way to test. I don't have a lab to test my food. So is it only in St. Lucia? No, it's across. But what we can do is continue to do training, continue to talk about it. Like each one of the 160 people on here will take what you learn as part of your program and tell others because it starts with us. But we need the government to put more focus on it. We need the companies, the hotels, not just for the tourists, but for the overall public safety. So the politically correct answer is we can do more.
Always. We'll now go back to the chat and we'll ask GK Joseph. You may unmute your mic and share with us, please.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Yes, my question, you kind of sort of touched on it, but what happens to those persons who produce fruits, well, more so vegetables, those short-term crops, and sell them on the market or to the supermarkets? What happens to the pesticides that are being placed on these crops to get rid of the insects and the pests, especially when the supermarket call for them, knowing that they were just sprayed, and because persons don't want to lose a sale, they still harvest the produce and sell them, not allowing the time to pass. I know that the residues can be absorbed within the vegetables. What do we do? How can we test for those things?
I'm going to talk for a few of the Caribbean islands. I don't know of a place where we test for pesticide in our food. Now, correct, I haven't been intimately involved. I don't live there right now. I spend a lot of time. But when I talk to the powers that be, we don't have a routine for pesticide testing. We have a list of thought pesticides should be on water protocol, but we don't have any way to verify it. I don't know that Marcy is testing for pesticide residues. So the thing for each and every one of us, like what I said, food safety is our responsibility. And unfortunately, the mighty dollar sometimes takes precedent and we make shortcuts. But it goes back to each and every one of us to use our conscience and assuming that food is ours. Although pesticide is a long-term effect, it does have a detrimental effect long-term. But right now, we don't have the capability to do for pesticide testing or residual pesticide testing for in-country food. If you're exporting food, you don't have a choice because before you get it into the border, no matter where you're going to send it, they test for pesticide before they release it. Internally, I don't know that we do that. So we just have to have due diligence. Unless somebody else have a different way, but that's a big gap. We don't test for pesticide residues that I know of.
So it's like we're taking a chance purchasing these fruits and vegetables.
We are. Food safety, eating is a very risky thing. It can make you paranoid because you have a little bit of information. But again, you have to use your common sense and or else you're not gonna eat. And then it goes back to say each and every one of us, we have to show the due diligence, hold people accountable, hold ourselves accountable. So when you go to your farm or when you do your agro processing, that you are getting that information, not just for your yield, not just for what you're selling, but for making safe food for your consumer and for your family. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we are now on the 8 o'clock marker. However, if it's okay, we can do 2 more questions if it's okay with you.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll take those questions from persons inside of the chat. So Verna, you may ask your question, and Milton ask your question, please. And
Okay,
then
hi.
after Verna, we'll have Amanda.
Okay, hi again.
Hi.
It's something that I wanted to revisit with the food culture. Yes,
Yeah.
food culture. So I remember I was doing a hospitality class, and one of the things that we had to cover was food preparation and personal hygiene. And the lecturer at the time, he said something that shook us, but I've never heard it again outside of that classroom, where as we look at the potatoes that we eat, they sometimes have little marks on them, whether they're going bad or they look like they have like this star looking kind of thing. And I think it's a bacteria. But instead of throwing out the potato, we cut off the bad end and we continue to cooking it. But what he was telling us is, from you see the marker, and when you cut off another piece and you see it again, it means that it's already embedded into the potato. So no matter how much you cut, the potato is actually a bad potato, and you're actually ingesting I can't remember the name of the bacteria. Can you elaborate on that? Because you kind of shook me with the cake batter thing. I've never heard of it. And how many cake batter pans have I sat down as a little girl and ate out of? Or even when we're mixing up cake and you pass and you taste it to make sure it's to your tasting, until even when you're making pancakes, you're tasting until before you actually make it, bake it, fry it and serve it.
So, yes, all of us have eaten batter before. Like my grandmother said, it never kill you. Why are you gonna tell me what to do now? But if you think about it, you put in raw eggs in there, you put in flour, and when we have tasted it, maybe we got a little stomach ache and we didn't think about it. But it becomes more important when you have the food, not only to your family, but when you become a farmer or somebody who's selling food, you're taking people's lives in your hands. And so the responsibility becomes even greater. So even if you want to taste it, that's up to you. But other people who are doing it for you, they shouldn't have to do it, right?
Right. So then people shouldn't really be drinking raw eggs.
No. People shouldn't be drinking raw milk and eating raw eggs. Even though our current US crazy administrator said people can drink raw milk. But you take it at your own risk, right?
Right. So
But
then,
you cannot put it on other people. If you want to eat your raw eggs, that's fine. People eat egg over easy all the time, and not
right.
me.
Not me either. I don't even do sushi.
Yeah, I don't do sushi, but
But the thing is with the potatoes, because I'm sure a lot of persons cook potatoes, and rightfully so, we just cut off the bad end, we toss that aside, and we proceed with the rest of the potato and continue cooking the potato.
So the potato, I think what you're talking about is a fungal, it's a lead blight, right? Caused by a fungus. And it's a phyto-aura infection. And once you already have it, you're right. In some cases, you can cut off, like if you have mold, you can cut off areas because the mold, most of them are not pathogenic. They're part of the good bacteria, right?
Okay.
It just feels disgusting, and you can cut that off and serve it. But in those where the bacteria can have a detrimental effect, once you have it, it's across the plant. You can't cut it off. And sometimes you'll see it like in the vegetables, when the potatoes are yellow on the outside, that's an indication that it's contaminated.
Okay. Okay. So I hope the rest of us on here that are listening oh boy, sorry about that. Take heed with the especially with the potato consumption. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll now have the final question. Amanda, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question. Amanda, are you here with us?
Hear me?
Okay, yes, we are hearing you.
Yes.
All right. First and foremost, good night to everyone, and thank you very much for sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome.
While this is the industry that I work in, meaning food and the food handlers and all of that, what I think often happen is a lack of accountability, where we have the inspectors, and I don't think that they do a very good job. Meaning, okay, they will just come in, on a day-to-day, or just unexpectedly they pop up on you. If they keep doing that all the time, then the business owners will find it, they will see that it's a must do. It's something that needs to be done. Because like the supermarkets, for instance, right? Every supermarket you go, you have a floor supervisor, you have the manager, you also have the ones that are packing the shelf. Now we know that we have items on the shelves where everything has an expiry date, everything has a batch number. Now it is within it's within their jurisdiction, so that they will check to see the expiry dates, what goes off, and have them pulled off of the shelves from before the date. But I think all of these things are happening because of negligence, and they will still go and they will sell them at a price where people will still go and buy them because they think, well, okay, it's cheaper, not knowing that they're putting themselves in danger. Now, where it comes to food handling and the hygiene, I think if we are more educated about, what is happening and how to control and how to avoid it, then I think that we'll be in a better headspace as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Let me talk about a little bit about the shelf life, the expiration dates. So expiration dates is a tricky one. So
It's
like
not.
on milk, for example,
Oh, Lord Jesus.
when you add expiration date to the big companies, the companies have to put extra amount. So if the product will spoil in 10 days, right? The companies will put the expiration date 5 days. Because when the customer buys it, they want that extra time to be able to put the food on the shelf. If they put 10 days and I buy it in 10 days, I don't have any more shelf life to put it on there. Now, having said that, if the food is a spoilage, like milk, and the stores are not supposed to sell it, but if you have it in your refrigeration, not all shelf life is a problem because the shelf life for quality, like you can see, did the milk, even though the milk said it expired in 2 days, but you look at your milk and it's not swelling, it's not expiring, you smell it, it's fine because most milk is not from a pathogen standpoint, it's a spoilage. But you have to know that information for you to be able to make that decision. A supermarket should not make that decision. They should not give people expired food to sell, to buy at a cheaper price or not. It's not acceptable, but it's done all the time. What I will tell you, if anybody in your store is buying expired food, the one thing you need to stay away from is dented cans. Dented cans can have deadly bacteria, the Clostridium botulism. Remember, I said it has the toxin and they grow outside of oxygen. So when you have dented cans, you have the opportunity of having a pinhole that allows oxygen to grow in. It seals it back. The spores are there. They produce toxins. Sometimes you will see swelling or bulging at the can, but sometimes you won't. And that could be deadly. So no matter how, if they give it to you away for free, do not use dented cans. The soup cans, all those other canned foods, do not use them. But the shelf life on spoilage thing, it's a risk you have to take on your own. Not all of them are bad because in some shelf life, the companies add extra padding on it for you. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Good.
Before I close, Miss Marwell, is there anything you would like to add? I say.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I know you guys. I want to thank you again because I know it's a long day. You have probably put a full day in. You have your families to take care of. To take that time to make yourself a better person. That class is, like I always say, is priceless information for you, for your family, from your food. So hoping that the food safety program, like all the other ones, is going to add value to you as a person, to you as a producer, to you as a farmer, and to your family. Also, I hope I don't stop everybody from eating. That was not the intent. The intent is for you to be aware and keep your eyes open and know where and what you are eating and to be able to bring that awareness for you, for your farm, and when you serve food. Because it's a privilege to be able to serve food to people. You don't want to make them sick. So thank you for that. And Latoya, I want to thank you for being such a great facilitator and keeping us moving. So guys, I'll see you all on Thursday. And if you have questions in the chat, Latoya, we can copy it and answer it for the next one.
Yes, I do. So for those questions, those persons who did not get their questions answered, I have already copied them and we'll definitely look at those first on Thursday. But I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening and a heartfelt thank you to you. Ms. Mawel, for such an informative and engaging presentation on the principles of food safety. Food always brings about conversations, especially when it's conversations like these. Tonight's sessions definitely reminded us that food safety is everyone's responsibility. From the moment food is grown, harvested, to how it is processed, prepared, and served. It's not just about preventing foodborne illnesses, it's about protecting lives. Also maintaining trust, which is needed in the food systems. Some of you asked questions tonight about that and where we are at, as well as promoting good health across our communities. So by applying these principles, from proper hygiene to temperature control, as well as safe storage and preparation and handling, we can all contribute to reducing contamination risk and ensuring that food reaching our tables is safe and nutritious. Thank again for your participation tonight and your enthusiasm throughout this session. Let's continue to put these healthy practices in place, because food today, well, safe food today means a safer tomorrow, not only for you as an individual, a family, a community, but a country. And like Ms. Mawel said, global, because most of us tend to import our food. So it all starts from there. So thanks again, everyone. Do have a pleasant night, and I look forward to seeing all of you, as well as our presenter back here on Thursday. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone. Come back next
Good
session.
night.
We'll see how to apply it to our farming.
Okay, thank you.
Bye,
Good
everyone.
night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Latoya.